In a world where digital interactions define our daily lives, one podcast dives deep into the heart of what makes those experiences genuinely memorable. Welcome to Digital Customer Experience Podcast by Kiosk. I'm Daniel Paul, and I'm thrilled to bring you the stories, insights, and expert opinions from the ever evolving world of digital customer experience. Whether you're a tech guru, a business leader, or just curious about the digital realm, this is the place to be. Let's dive in. Today, we have a special treat for all our listeners. Joining us is Rick Farrell, founder and design partner at Thunk, a leading digital product design and user experience company. With an impressive 25 years career in design, Rick has been at the forefront of innovation, having worked with a number of big tech companies and media organizations. He spent a decade at Google, contributing to iconic products like Google Search, Google Maps, and even Android. Not just confined to the digital space, Rick is also an avid traveler. He's set foot in over 70 countries and all 7 continents on Earth. It is an honor to have Rick with us today.
Hi, Daniel. Thanks very much. Great intro. Love that.
It's a pleasure to have you. And with your vast experience in the space of design and digital products, we are so happy to have you in our podcast. And I already feel that this is going to be super beneficial for our listeners.
Oh, great. Yeah, no, it's a pleasure to be here. Thanks.
All right, let's just get straight into the first section of our podcast. I always ask our guests this question. It's our icebreaker question. With your vast experience in design, especially in the digital realm, if you had to compare your design process to a journey in one of the 70 countries that you've visited, which country would it be? And why?
Oh, wow. Wow, what a question. Yeah, gosh. So, yeah, no, I have done a lot of traveling throughout my career. I've taken several kind of career breaks to travel in various different areas of the world. And yeah, that's a tough one. Lots of journeys, but I would, you can't sort of go past without thinking about Japan really as a country. I was there I've only been there once, and it was sort of 2016, 17, and that was around about the time when kind of VR was just kind of kicking off again, and there was lots of VR arcades and things like that being set up in Tokyo. And yeah, Japan, I suppose, always felt futuristic to me growing up. And so it was, yeah, real amazing to sort of get there and be immersed in kind of the sight and sounds of Tokyo and all the other places that we went to when we were there. But I suppose, yeah, like I say, the VR stuff there was the arcades that they were creating and how they were, yeah, setting up big fans and water spurting out when you were using the VR. They were really kind of like trying to immerse you in an experience, and I suppose that was really incredible for me. I really enjoyed that, and then everything else that Japan has to offer, I suppose, in terms of that, you kind of feel that they're slightly ahead in terms of technology, but when you get there, you realize that actually it's not really that. Lots of neon lights and things like that. But I suppose one of the things that surprised me the most about Tokyo was all the sounds, actually. The kind of electronic beeps everywhere, from credit card machines to the subway to just walking down the street and hearing these little different beeps and musical chimes when washing machines finish, all that kind of stuff. So that's like super inspiring just to kind of immerse yourself in a different culture and just see things a different way. So yeah, I would say that really.
This is amazing because, like, when you're explaining this, I'm actually there. I'm like, okay, this is the sound that a washing machine makes. It's not just visual; you're bringing in the audio element of the whole process. So it's like so amazing to hear, and that's why I think you have been to 70 countries because you enjoy the smallest things that the country has to offer.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. I think immersing yourself in different cultures, certainly it opens your horizons. Probably, and if you work as a designer, it probably opens your mind as well to, looking at things a different way. And that's kind of what it's about, I suppose. So yeah, hoping to add to my 70 countries at some point.
Love it, love it. I just love the whole way how this podcast has started because you took us to a journey to Japan, and now we're going to jump into the journey to design. And I'm pretty sure that our listeners would love to hear your thoughts on the question that I have today.
Okay.
So, my first very question is, how can design transform a company from an underdog to a champion? So, let it say in the field of telco or in general for companies, how can this work?
Okay. Yeah. Well, it's an interesting way that you put the question, because you say design transformation and design transformation. Uh, um, and I think there's been a huge focus on digital transformation over the last decade or so, and design is sort of definitely a part of that. Um, but I think across industries, and whether it's telcos or in other industries, I think it comes down to companies that are investing in design to become more design-led organizations. So essentially improving internal sort of design maturity. And I suppose when I talk about design, I'm very much talking about the way things work and problem solving, design as problem solving, as opposed to just visuals, colors, fonts, that kind of thing, which I think a lot of people maybe think about, but that's what they first think about when they think about design. um, there's a famous design maturity scale for how you can measure your design maturity within your organization, from Nielsen Norman. And it can take years to improve design maturity within an organization. But when you talk about, like, from underdog to champion, it just makes me think about the startups that we've seen over the last 20 years or so. When you think about um, design-led companies like Airbnb, Square, Netflix, obviously Apple, things like that. And these companies have invested heavily in design over this period, and obviously reaping the benefits. And there's so many stats out there that say that if you invest in design, you actually outperform your peers. And I think McKinsey is a famous report around that, um, which says, yeah, design-led companies outperform all their peers on the stock market for the last sort of 10-15 years. Um, I suppose just building on that scale, that sort of 6-point scale. I suppose we try and simplify it down and talk about three different types of companies that we tend to work with. And so number one, there's aspirational companies when it comes to design. So you understand it, you get that there's a process to design, you get that it's more about more than just visuals, colors, and fonts. But maybe you don't have the right resources or skills to really get going, and we class those as kind of aspirational companies, which we help out. And then there's kind of emergent companies, that's number two. So they have design and research functions, but they would benefit from some kind of proficient direction. And then finally, the third one that we look at are design-led organizations. So cross-functional teams all contribute to design, but they're busy and stretched, and we kind of go in and help out. But it can take years to improve that design maturity within an organization.
Thanks, Rick. That's something that, when me as someone that doesn't have background with design, as you said, it immediately thinks of visual, right? People immediately think of colors, fonts, and so on. But what exactly is design when it comes to telco sector or companies? What is design? How would you break it down?
Well, like I said, for me, design is about solving problems, um, and getting the time on task for customers down to as little as it can be, but also having a benefit to the business for that as well. So um, understanding what problems you're trying to solve for a customer, and then iterating and prototyping on that until you get it to the point where people are understanding how to use something. They're not having to spend a long time on that task, and it benefits the business as well, that these tasks are done quicker and more simply.
Brilliant. And I love the phrase that you said, design is about solving problems. I'm
Yeah.
going to start thinking about design from now onwards. It's about solving problems and not just colors and fonts. All right, let's get into the next part. So, what are the top three pitfalls in digital product evolution and user experience that you have seen in your career?
um, yeah. So I think the number one, the first one, is things that aren't actually solving a real problem. So you see this all the time with um, startups and things, and they're focused on the solution rather than the actual problem to begin with, and that's like the first kind of pitfall, I suppose, that's quite common. Um, the second one is probably not talking to customers or potential customers, and this falls into like different sort of categories of talking to customers, I suppose, because we speak to people that go, yeah, we do talk to customers, but it's actually the way you talk to them, or how you listen to them, or how you observe them. And maybe we can get into that a bit more, but I think there are some companies that don't talk to customers, or find it difficult to talk to customers, and just use their own sort of skills internally to solve problems or design things. And yeah, I think that is the sort of second pitfall. The third one would probably be related to what we were just talking about earlier. Confusing what um, user experience actually means. And I think there's been a huge increase in the understanding of, or the you know supposed understanding of what UX actually is over the last sort of 10 years or so. Um, but at its core, it has to be about solving problems, making customers' lives easier, and improving things for businesses. And that's really sort of UX for me.
Brilliant. I love these three breakdown of, the pitfalls that the companies have in the telco sector or in general. I love it. How about the third question? This is something targeted towards what you do on a regular basis. So, how can a design centric vision propel a company's growth? Because everyone wants to grow their company, but they take the design centric factor out of the equation. So, enlighten us on your thoughts, please.
Hmm. Yeah, I think probably some of the things I've already said, but however, I think when you make design important, and I'm talking about the how it works kind of design again, not just the visuals. And if you go on a user-centered design journey, um, you're going to get into a lot of customer and user research. You're going to be doing design workshops with cross-functional teams, not only designers but product engineering, and depending on what industry you work in, probably industry experts as well. There's going to be a lot of iteration. There's going to be a lot of prototypes and a lot of testing, a lot of putting it in front of potential customers, understanding what's working, what isn't working, um, and then doing all this. It gives you a better chance of building the right product, solving the right problem, and I would say that this in turn, if you do all this in turn, that will actually drive company growth. It's not like a silver bullet approach. It takes time, and there are certain ways you can sort of speed some of this up. But if you can give that design process time, and then you can really drive growth with the right product solving the right problems. Yeah, so I would say that would be sort of how I would consider, how that design centric vision could propel a company, but be it telco or other industry forward. Just having that user centered design process.
Love it. Love it. Thank you, Frick. I'll go to the last part. This is something that we ask all our guests based on their expertise in their own field. So you might have seen a lot of things that you could have done better when you started your design company, right? So my question is, what are the three mistakes you want emerging telco firms or companies to avoid when it comes to design?
Um, yeah, cool. Okay. So I would say that firstly they should, understand what design is for them and their organization. Um, I mean, I've definitely sort of made mistakes along the way in our company. I think one of the things that maybe we don't talk about enough about, which we're trying to change, is actually the process and what we're actually doing. We very much get into the work and forget to really kind of document it and actually show how we what the work we've done for people and the process that we kind of went through with photos and videos and that kind of thing. So I would say, yeah, documenting what you're doing is useful. Not only to be able to sort of shout about it on social media and everything else, but actually help you as a team kind of refine processes and things like that. But I would say, yeah, again, maybe that's the first one. Maybe the second one is really pay attention to the whole customer journey and the needs of customers. Um, Again, how things work, solving problems. Avoid falling in that trap of thinking design comes at the end of the process as a kind of lick of paint. I suppose secondly, and again, yeah, related to that one, investing in design at the right time. And I see this a lot. So you'll see a post from some startup founders saying something along the lines of, oh, we just launched our beta and we're looking for our first design hire. And it's kind of like, really, you should be investing in design a lot earlier. How do you know that the beta that you've built is actually the right thing if you haven't had any design or research? And again, it goes to that what we were talking about earlier about going straight to the solution rather than digging into problems. And I suppose that the third mistake, and again mentioned this earlier, but I think talking to customers, but it's a funny one, as I said, because it's like we speak to so many firms that say, well, we do talk to our customers and look at all these conversations that we've had, and these are the things that we've learned. And oftentimes we'll hear things from firms that are like, so well, we spoke to our customers, but everyone's saying different things, and it's hard for us. We can't build everything for everyone, so like it's really hard for us to understand what we should be doing. And I'd say in a lot of those situations, it's the kind of speaking to customers in the wrong way. They're asking what customers want or what they like leading questions. And it's the way you talk to customers and how you listen to customers is important. But I would suppose I would say that more important than both those things is actually customer observation, right? And watching people's processes, shadowing them when they're trying to complete a task, whether that's through the job that they do, or whether it's a short sort of 5-minute task around configuring their device or something like that in terms of the telco use case. But I suppose shadowing them and like asking them why they do things in a certain way, and then digging in to find those problems. So, I mean, it's classic sort of user research role, really, and it's really not an easy thing to master, which is why it's important to hire fantastic researchers as well as like fantastic designers as well, really. But I would say that would be the kind of third mistake that I suppose I see people make.
I think this is really, really helpful because the point that you mentioned throughout the podcast is that how customer centric a company should be. And the more the customer centric, they're able to solve their problem faster and bringing design in the earlier part of their process and not when all the problems occur. But I have a question and a situation that startups might be in. So it comes down to money, right? So initially they might not have enough money to invest in design. So if they can't do that at that particular time, what would you suggest? How can they start? Let's say, for example, now you're a co-founder of a company called Tank, right? So could your company help someone like that consultation wise, or what should a company that doesn't have enough money and resources to invest in design, what should they do?
Well, it's a really interesting question because if they don't have the money or resources to invest in a real kind of design process and like everything that we've been talking about on this podcast, then I would sort of wonder, well, where is the money being invested? Because
Hmm.
they have most of the time they do have some sort of investment, and where is that going? Is it all going on engineering? And if it is, then maybe actually you should be looking to portion that out a little bit, and you can talk about ratios of engineering to design resource and things like that. um but there are various different methodologies and processes that you can go through as a company, just to quickly identify things like problems and understanding customers. And the classic one is the Google design sprint, solving problems in 5 days. And that's definitely something. There's fantastic resources out there. A great book by Jake Knapp, former Googler. And things like that can really help you understand the wider kind of user-centered design process, but also start actually practicing it in quick ways. And yeah, that's the way that we've helped some companies in the past. But it's certainly something that you can do sort of on your own and as founders. And it's kind of like an iteration itself, really. The more kind of these workshops that you do, and the more you understand customers, the better ideas you'll get, and the more kind of design led that you should become, and customer led.
Yeah, I love it. And I really love the part when you said we should go back to the board and think, if they're not investing in design, what are they investing in? Right? That's amazing analogy, because CEOs or people who run businesses don't have this thought. But you, as a designer who has worked for Google and many different companies, you say that design has to be a part of the company and the process, not later thinking if design isn't, do we need it? It is a necessity for a company to grow. I love the analogy that you gave.
Yeah, it's interesting because like over 25 years, I've been doing UX and digital product design before we really knew it was called UX. And over that career, I've seen things change dramatically, and now people understand it now in terms of a function and the importance of it. And the companies that get it are all the companies that are around us that we can name, that become household names, right? And design has evolved internally within those organizations over this last 15, 20 years. And that's why they're out in front.
Yeah. And one thing that comes to my mind, when you said about, like, if they're not investing in design, what are they investing in? It reminds me of something that I saw on social media when COVID hit and the government was cutting down money on the arts and arts sector. And there was someone, I don't know who it was, like they wrote, like, if you're not investing in art, what are you investing in? Right? It is a similar kind of an analogy, but I do understand how much of an importance in both the factor these plays. Like when it comes to everyday life, how hard art plays a huge difference, and when it comes to business, how design plays a huge role in growing the company. So with that, we are coming to the end of our podcast. But is there anything that you'd like to tell people in the telco sector who has not considered design yet to be a part of their process? Do you have some wise wisdom words for them?
um, I would say take a look at some of the great books that have been around for decades on user experience and the design of everyday things. A classic book, and lots of other things to look at, and maybe shift your mindset from thinking about design as a kind of lick of paint and a visuals to actually how products are actually work. And Yeah, when you can make that shift in sort of mindset, you start to sort of see things around you in your everyday life that need redesigning in terms of the way they work, and it gets you into maybe a different mindset about what design actually is.
Thank you, Rick. It's been a pleasure having you in our podcast. And to all our viewers, if you enjoyed today's podcast, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more in depth discussions on the digital customer experience. Drop us a comment below with your thoughts or any questions you might have for Rick or our future guests. Until next time, stay curious and keep innovating. This is Danny here, and thank you very much, Rick.
Thanks very much.